it's personal responsibility. It's no one's fault but your own, but that's what people aren't. It's like, I didn't do it. I don't know where all this debt came from. But can you fix it for me, Mr. Whoever, stranger, government, whatever?
Yeah.
They want somebody else to fix their problem. That's what's wrong.
That's worldwide right now, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
But how can we shift that? How do we shift that narrative where they're not? Because first of all, it's people buying crap they don't need to impress people they don't like. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Renew podcast. I am your host, Kristen Andre, and in my co-hosting duties today, we have Mr. Matt Steele back with us.
Good morning. Great to be here again.
So here's the thing. Last time you were in, we talked about kind of what's going on in the educational system and financial literacy and all that stuff. So today, this was another hot topic. We're going to talk about debt, which is fun.
Yeah.
I mean, accumulating debt is sometimes fun.
Oh, that can be.
Paying it off is terrible.
Yeah.
So I know you have some very strong opinions on this subject, which is why I was glad we were going to tackle it today. So I am the type, with a financial background, I see obviously a lot of people's situations. Some are really good.
Right.
Some are really bad. And I don't feel like most people have a good understanding of debt, whether it's good debt, bad debt, whatever you want to call it. I think we just kind of come in and a lot of people just take on debt and don't think about it.
We talked about that last time, kicking the can down the road. And I think a lot of times people take on this debt, and you said they don't think about it. And then all of a sudden, years go by, and you're like, how did this happen?
Right.
Well, when you look at it, it's real simple how it happened. You weren't paying attention.
And you spent more than you should. Because a lot of times people will say, we hear the good debt, bad debt, and I see that. I mean, a house is an investment as long as you're trying to pay it off. Okay, so that's not a bad debt. People should try to pay it off. Then it becomes a little bit more freeing. But it's the consumer debt that I think people don't pay attention to. And they just kind of put things on credit cards thinking, okay, I'll pay it off at the end of the month. And the end of the month comes like, it's just a little balance. And then it grows and it grows. I mean, this is compound interest in the wrong way.
Yeah.
They're compounding debt. So it's, as a society, we looked at, it's trillions. You and I were playing around with the math the other day, and we couldn't even get enough zeros on the calculator to figure out how much debt the U.S. is. It was in the trillions of dollars.
Yeah, and then all the different kinds, right? Because one of the hot ones that I see a lot about is the student loan debt.
Yes.
And I knew it was bad, but
yeah,
I did about 10 minutes worth of homework on it, and I realized how bad it really is.
Yep.
Now, here's the interesting train of thought, right? Because I'm not real sympathetic. So if you don't,
the warm fuzzy is not sympathetic.
If you don't know me, I will never try to upset anybody. But I'm realistic in debt. It's like, if you're in a lot of it, you did it.
Yes.
Right? It's not, guess what? It's not my fault.
Well, and the student loan debt's all right. So I just looked it up. It's 1.7 trillion with a T.
Yeah.
In the U.S. in student loans.
Yeah.
That's a boatload of money. That's a boatload of money.
Yes.
So you're right. But here's where, and we talked about this before too, because it's a conscious choice to get into debt. And people will say that it's not, but it is. If you are taking on student loans, you know that you're taking them on. I would think in most parts. We have determined that some people don't actually know that loans need to be repaid.
That's mind-blowing.
That seems like loan 101 to me.
Yes.
If you borrow money, you take it.
If you can brush your hair successfully and walk through a doorway, you understand that the word loan, by definition, means it's got to be paid back. And here's insensitive, Matt, right?
Okay.
Because I'm watching some of these kids. I'm sympathetic to the kids because they have a lot of debt.
Right.
Okay. But they're like, well, I don't know how it happened. I didn't know I was going to have to pay it all back. It's called a loan, right?
It's true.
Grant is granted to you. You don't have to pay that back. A scholarship, typically, you don't pay back, right? You have to maintain certain grade levels.
Right,
but
you
a
don't have to pay it back.
loan, it's a loan. Like, nobody was more dumb than me in college, right? And I don't mean stupid. I mean dumb. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
Because the school system, as we showed last time we were together, it didn't teach me anything. It didn't
Yeah.
prepare me for the real world, right? You know how I got student loans? And fortunately, I didn't get a lot because I had to get a job.
Right.
And I worked through college. I worked
Yeah.
flipping burgers at Wendy's and doing all kinds of cool stuff like that, right? You know how I got my first student loan?
But you worked though. That's the thing.
Oh, I
So,
worked my
yeah.
butt off.
Yeah.
I did. I was walking down UCF in Orlando, right? And there was a tent there with a really pretty girl working under the tent, and she had credit card applications.
That was your
And,
first.
and it wasn't a student loan per se. It was like a credit card, right?
Yeah.
And if you filled out the application, you got a free 2-liter bottle of Pepsi. Well, at that time, a free 2-liter bottle of Pepsi, you might as well have been handing me $20 because I didn't have it. You know, I'm like, free Pepsi? All I got to do is sign that? Sure, no problem.
But
Then you
that
get
was for a credit card?
That was for a credit card, yeah. But the student loan, I did get a student loan different. But my point is, I didn't know anything. I was just a babe in the woods, so to speak, right? I just didn't know anything about anything. But I knew that if I was taking out a loan,
You had to give
at
it back.
some point I had to pay it back.
Well, and it's for the, so student loans, if you are going into, and this is, we talked about before, if you're going into a skilled profession that you need a lot of education, it is hard. I mean, but I fault a lot of the time the colleges, and this is one of the things at the beginning of COVID, because I think COVID, and we've talked about this, is forced us to look at a lot of things. And one of the things I remember when COVID first came out, or the PPP loan first came out, and I remember reading about a bunch of colleges that were getting PPP money. I'm like, y'all are sitting on friggin' millions and millions of dollars of endowment money, but they need to apply for this because same thing, it's free money.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times people just they take it because they're like, it's free. But student loans is the one, that and mortgages, I think but you have to be conscious. And that's what's been interesting to see in some of the responses we've got with the survey we'd done previously, was that a lot of people don't think, if they get out of college, like, I had a couple $100,000 I got to pay back. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
They're paying, I have a friend or a family member who's a physician. Their student loan payments are more than double their mortgage
Wow.
for 10 years.
And you would think, I don't know much about that industry, you know, so when you're not in that industry, you just assume everybody in it's making a killer money. And I'm sure most are. But I'm also sure that I do know one surgeon back home, and we had lunch, and he was telling me about all the insurance he's got to pay. He's like, I make a lot of money.
But
He
the
goes,
malpractice.
the malpractice insurance eats up whatever the percentage was of that. So by the time he knocked down all of his bills and student loan payments and all that, it's like, I don't know, he had a pretty good job, but it wasn't anything that great.
Well, and you've got to look at, and that's the thing that people haven't, and part of the challenge that we have without people being educated on these basic concepts is they don't think about it. People, I feel like, take on debt without thinking about it before they do it. They think about it down the road when they're like, oh crap, now we've got hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands, whatever it is. And they haven't thought about what they're going to do with it. But that's student loans. We've got mortgage loans. The consumer debt is what gets me. That's the part. And I was guilty of this. I made, and I was in finance, and I made terrible financial decisions younger. And it was all the needs versus wants. It was the, do I really need this? I'll just charge it.
Yeah.
And you can run up credit card bills, and since they'll give an application, to your point, you put a cute little young person out there on the college campus, every college student above the age of 18 is going to sign up. They don't know what they're signing.
Right.
So they accumulate all this consumer debt.
Yes.
And consumer debt's all about wants. It really is. I don't see a lot of people using, maybe they do. I don't see a lot of people using the credit cards to pay bills, but I'll see them go buying something they don't need.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have this conversation with my son a lot because I don't drink coffee. I don't drink coffee and I don't smoke cigarettes. You know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars I've saved over my lifetime by not, and I'm lucky that I don't have those two habits. I'm glad about it. I've got other bad habits, but those are not two of them.
Those are not two of them.
But I tell my son, I'm like, dude, when somebody's buying I don't know what a coffee costs, right?
Well, Starbucks, you can drop $5 at Starbucks on a coffee.
And you can do that daily, right?
Yes.
Because it becomes part of the routine.
Right.
And so now that's 5 days a week. That's $100 a month, right?
Yep.
So there's that. Cigarettes are even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Minus the health issues. I'm strictly
talking
talking about
cash.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And clothing and eating out. I love eating out, but that's got to be one of the things that people spend the most money on too. And I'm all for business, restaurants being open. I'm not bad.
Well, I do too, and I like to eat out, but I don't do it a ton. But at the same time, the difference comes. It's not the eating out. It's not I like clothes too.
Right.
But it's what happens is when you're buying them and you can't afford them.
Yeah.
And I think if we said this before, if the pandemic did not wake people up, I don't know what will.
Right.
I really don't, because people and we very quickly, within 2 months at the most, saw who was highly leveraged and who wasn't.
Yeah.
Because the leveraged folks were freaking.
You think about that, and I didn't realize that was such a problem, because sometimes I just don't pay attention. If it doesn't affect me immediately, I don't think about it. But you hear stuff on the news about the average family is paycheck to paycheck, or how long they could go without it.
Right.
Before it would just be catastrophic.
And we learned this past year, it was a month or two tops for most people. And a lot of people, it wasn't even that long.
Yeah.
It was, they were out of money day one.
Yeah. And that's sad. Again, I'm not the most sympathetic person, because I understand that bad things happen to good people. I get it.
Correct.
And I'm sympathetic to that. But I'm not sympathetic to people who have made a lifetime of bad decision making.
Yes.
And then they're like crying the blues about it.
That's fair. Less fair. I mean, because if we really look at debt, and this is why you hear the good versus bad. Like there's the loans, or the student loans. The medical debt's big. Medical debt was a big one. I know when we did a survey before, people were like, student loans, medical debt. Medical can screw people over.
Yeah.
Like if you have something bad happen and your insurance doesn't pay for it. I get that. You feel bad for them, but that's understandable because they had zero control over it.
Absolutely.
And I'm a big person on control the controllables.
Mm-hmm.
Consumer debt, in my opinion, is controllable.
Yeah.
But if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're highly leveraged, you're never going to get that amount down. So you're always going to be that leveraged.
Yeah, you're working just to service the debt, right?
And it's funny because it was a few years ago they passed some kind of law or something. Now on credit card statements, they have to put, I don't know if you've seen this, but they have to put like 2 boxes. Like if you make the minimum payment, it'll take this number of years to pay off. If you pay this much, it'll take, and if the minimum payment is like 43 years or something huge, like if you only made the minimum payment, but so many people are doing that.
Yeah.
And 43 years is a long time to pay off a credit card.
Yeah, it is. And you're going to pay it about 5 times.
Well, and it does say that. You end up paying the same thing with mortgage debt too. If you really look at, you paid 3 times what your house is valued at by the time you put in all the interest. But it's a behavioral thing. I think and that's the part we keep talking about solutions to debt on the financial aspect. It's like, what can we, how can you reduce, what tactics can you take? What can the government do? A lot of people they need to wipe out. You and I had this conversation. And this will be controversial because I know everybody's looking to have there's a lot of student loan debt. We know that. But, the administration's trying to say, let's wipe out. And you asked me this, and I think you were baiting me one day trying to figure out where it was. But it was, I'm not in favor of that. I'm not in favor of wiping out. Let's just take.
You horrible,
I'm
evil
terrible,
person, you.
evil. And y'all can be mad at me and you can write letters, address them to Isaac.
Oh, thanks.
But here's the thing is, my daughter has some student loans that she took out. She's in law school. She's going to have more student loans by the end of law school. She consciously made that choice to do that and knows what the numbers look like and is very budgeted, knows what she has to repay. She thoughtfully decided and made a conscious choice to take on that debt. What bothers me about that is if they come in and say, all right, everybody gets 10 grand. Well, are you going to give 10 grand to the people that saved and was really thoughtful and paid cash for college?
No. And the thought process is, well, those people are fine anyway. They don't need it.
Can we say? I don't know what we can say.
It's about being
That's crap.
fair. It is crap.
It is because if I paid cash for college, and or somebody like you, I work now. I was fortunate when I went to college. My parents paid for it, so but my dad worked hard,
right?
And he was able to provide that for my brother and I. That's great. So I totally get that. We were fortunate to come out of school without loans. And I know not everybody's like that. But my dad shouldn't be punished because he worked so hard to be able to pay for that.
Right.
And that's kind of how I see it. It's like if we're just going to wipe out, same thing with consumer debt. And this is where I say control the controllables. Anyone that's in debt, and I have been there for sure. I've had years where I paid off, divorces and things like that, you can accumulate some debt.
Yeah, those can be pricey.
They're a little pricey. But with that said, you make the choice. You got in the hole, get out of the hole.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like people are just waiting to be rescued. And that's what, for me, that's what ticks me off.
So the problem is so many people, if that happens, let's break it down to the 100% of the people that would get that relief.
Okay.
Out of that 100%, one can argue that there are some of those people, I don't know what the number would be, that will legitimately benefit from that.
Yep.
And they will use it the right way.
Yep.
And that'll be a good thing. What I'm afraid of is you get like a $10,000 statement credit is really what it would be, right? They're immediately going to say, well, man, that's $10,000 off of that. Well, I can go spend 12 over here now.
Right.
And that's what I'm afraid of. And that's human nature, what so many people do.
And that's why they're in the situation in the first place.
Yes. So they're going to get help. And a year later, they're going to be in a worse situation.
Right.
So.
Well, and that's, it goes to the thing, and I said this, and I think I ticked some people off. I said this on the show before, with last year with the stimulus money coming out, there were some high-end stores here that like they had to hire extra security. So if we're sending out stimulus money so you can buy groceries, don't get in line at the Gucci store to buy your $1,000 tennis shoes.
No.
But that's what was I don't. You're not supposed. I mean, but here's the thing. Everybody makes the argument, well, that's what they choose to spend money on. Fantastic. I could care less what everybody spends their own money on.
Sure.
I care what you spend my money on, which is where that's coming from.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, you've got to look at it. I'm all for helping. Like, I know I sound like cold and heartless, and I'm only cold and heartless some of the time.
No, that's good though.
But it's true. It's good to be cold and heartless.
Well, at times.
You've got to
No, but you know what that is?
People need to think.
It's called reality. And so often now, look, we live in a world where nobody wants to hurt anybody's feelings, and
I like hurting people's
everybody
feelings.
is just soft, and it's like, woe is me, feel bad for me, I've done nothing but make horrible decisions, and you should be sympathetic for me. No, you got to get smacked every now and then, and the reality's got to set in.
I agree, but let's talk about that, because I mean, I know we're sitting here going, yeah, you should feel bad, and we don't feel bad for you, but that's because you and I both made horrible decisions in our past and learned from them. And that's the difference. I mean, I made every bonehead decision I've ever made is just it most of them had to do with relationships, but that's another episode. But with that, we all made crappy decisions and we learned from them.
Yeah.
So if you're not learning from them and you're still creating the same vortex, it's not going to get better.
No, it's not. And periodically we get these wake-up calls. You mentioned COVID was one. Well, I mean, the real estate bubble.
2008?
The year, whatever that was. That was another one for people. And so that was my wake-up call for me. Fortunately, I wasn't in a situation. I just lived in a house and was chilling,
Yeah.
But I watched good friends of mine, good people, hardworking people, good parents, pillars of society, lose their homes. And these weren't people that I would have, in a million years, I would have never thought that they were going to lose their homes.
So what made them lose it?
They were leveraged. It didn't matter how much money they were making. They could have been making $50,000 a year, or they could be making $500,000 a year. No matter what that amount was, they were living like they were making more than that.
Yeah.
And boom, they lost their homes. Everything from houses that were worth $100,000 to, a couple $1 million homes. My friends built this house. It was beautiful. I'd never really seen a house like it. They're like, come on over and check out this house. Had an elevator in it. I'm like, wow, they got an elevator in their house, And at the time, like now at my age, I've seen a couple homes with elevators in them.
Right.
It's not my thing, but whatever. Elevator companies have to work too.
They have to
I'm all
make
for
a
that.
living.
And they're just like, you want to ride in the elevator? I'm like, yes, I want to ride in the elevator. Of course I do, And it was a beautiful home. The pool, and they had the mosquito mister and all that. It's nice. It's like, oh, the mosquitoes are coming out. Oh, they just hit the button over here, and here comes the mist. I was like, wow, this is how the rich people live. That house was gone like a year later,
Well, and people leverage. That's the thing that with debt, it allows people to leverage. It allows people to get things. I don't remember when I was little, I just don't remember credit cards. I'm sure they were around, but if we didn't have something, you didn't buy it. We had layaway. I remember layaway. We'd go do our school shopping and get clothes, and you could put them on layaway.
Yeah.
But the cool thing with layaway, I don't know if you remember this because you might not have been a shopper, but you would go and layaway just basically said, these are my clothes. I want to have them, and they keep them.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you've paid it, like, I'll pay a little bit here, I'll pay a little bit here, pay a little bit. Once you pay it off, then you get your stuff.
Yeah.
That was layaway. That was that was probably in the, I don't know, 70s. But now they're like, ooh, I want all this stuff. We're like, just take it. Take it. Just, you can have it now.
Yeah.
Pay for it later. And it's the pay for it later that's getting people in trouble. So now they just get all this stuff. Now, I'm not dissing stuff because I am a fan of, and I know you're a fan of toys and things.
Yeah.
And, adventures and going places and spending money. But correct me if I'm wrong, you're probably not spending what you don't have.
No. But I think it's because I grew up, I don't know, just without anything.
Yep.
So, and I remember that. And so when you get older and something goes the right way, you're like, hey, this is pretty good. I don't want to screw it up,
Right.
And so, I'm not. You're right. I'm not spending.
But I think part of that is where you came from. I mean, I think that's why my dad grew up very poor, and I think that's why he's so conservative with his money, and he's very thoughtful in what he spends things on and everything. He's very anti-debt as well. But I feel like, regardless of background, I know people that came from wealthy backgrounds who are in a lot of debt, and I know people that came from very poor that are in a lot of debt.
Yeah.
And the opposite's true. It's just, I feel like it gets back to personal responsibility. And that's what seems to be lacking. Like, first of all, we're not educating people. We talked about that before, but it's personal responsibility. It's no one's fault but your own, but that's what people aren't. It's like, I didn't do it. I don't know where all this debt came from, but can you fix it for me, Mr. Whoever, stranger, government, whatever.
Yeah.
They want somebody else to fix their problem. That's what's wrong.
That's worldwide right now, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
But how can we shift that? How do we shift that narrative where they're not? Because first of all, it's people buying crap they don't need to impress people they don't like.
Yeah.
Right? It really is. It's the keeping up with the Joneses, which I know you and I did an episode a few months back on that. But people are really, they don't think. They really don't think. And like I said, I'm a huge advocate. I want to support businesses. I want to do all that. I will spend money, but the leverage is going to kill us if we keep going down this route.
Absolutely. But what's the penalty?
There's not one, and that's the problem.
You're just going to go into more debt. Well, okay, you're already in a bunch, and you're not going to jail. It's not physically hurting you. It's just, it's a number somewhere on a chart, and that number is just going to get bigger and bigger. Doesn't really affect your day-to-day, does it? Me, it drives me
well,
crazy.
I think we need to talk about that because I feel like it does affect the day-to-day. So how many people do you know that when everything shut down and a lot of businesses shut down and a lot of people lost their jobs, how many people do you know that were truly like, I'm good?
Very few.
Okay. So it does affect them. It affects your mental state. To be able to go into something like that going, I'll be fine.
Yeah. That's interesting. But I think it's just normal. Now people will say, well, I've got X amount of that and X amount on my car. I heard somebody talking the other day, there was some young dudes, and the one guy was like, he goes, man, I'm going to get this vehicle as soon as I get this one paid off. I have another year and a half, and once it's paid off, I'll get this one. And I wanted to shake him. I'm like, dude, when it's paid off, you drive that thing into the ground and you live without a car payment. That's what you do. But how common is it? People just, they're like, well, that's paid off. I'm so used to having a car payment. I've heard people say that too, because they'll be like, well, I lease my vehicles because I can write it off through my company. And I'm not a huge fan of leasing. I don't
lease.
But I understand why some people do it. I get it.
I just drive too much.
But I'm like, so you're leasing that, huh? They go, yeah, well, I can get a nicer vehicle for a less price, and I figure I'm going to have a car payment my whole life anyway. They've already defeated themselves. It's like, no, you don't have to have a car payment your whole life. You know, people say, well, I'm going to have a mortgage payment my whole life. Not if you pay it off, Well,
and there's a big trend going towards that. And I feel like, and I know Ramsey's really big on that. And a lot of, having a financial background, a lot of people in the financial world are not Ramsey fans. But and that's because he takes dollars away from what they want, right? So it's what they want to But I don't know. I mean, his advice is good for a lot of people, not for everybody,
Sure.
but for a lot of people. But what I do love about him is the emergency fund, like having 6 months, 3 to 6 months of income or expenses set aside in cash that you can get to. We would not have been as messed up this past year if everybody had that. If everybody knew, you know what, I'm good for 6 months. I mean, my business, both of our businesses last year took massive turns. They had to, all of our live events canceled, everything like that. So it for sure affected me financially, but at the same time, still pay the bills.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to look at is right now, the reason debt comes is because their expenses are here and their income's here and their expenses are either at or just above. So they're leveraged out the wazoo.
Yeah, I got some beautiful cars though, don't they? Man.
They do have pretty cars.
Yeah.
But it's, it's funny because I'll see that, and I have a girlfriend of mine who works for a very, she's in finance for a large luxury car. I won't name the brand, high end. And they also do not the mortgages, the lease, the payment plans for them. And I asked her, because we're talking several $100,000s for these cars. And I was like, how many payment plan, like how many people actually finance a $250,000 car? And that's what was funny. She said, what's funny is some people do. And she said, now the ones who are collectors and buy it, they're all cash. They're paying cash. They have no debt on the car. They just buy the cars. But she said that you can almost tell like who can actually afford it.
Yeah.
Because, if you're going to buy a $250,000 car, you probably should be able to pay cash for it.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I think. Because if not, if you have to finance it, that's leverage.
I remember when I was buying the truck that my son has now, and I bought it brand new because I usually keep them for 10 or 12 years. So I'll buy something brand new, and I'm in there, and the guy's like, he goes, well, where do you want your payment to be or something? And I was like, well, I don't really care because I'm gonna pay it off as quickly as I can. I don't really care if the payment's $300 or $700. It doesn't really matter to me because if I have X amount of money to throw at it that month, that's what I'm gonna do because I'm gonna try to knock it down. And I'm curious about stuff. I asked him, he was like the finance manager guy. He's like I was buying a mid-level Chevy Silverado truck, right? It was like $35,000. Well, I don't know if you've priced new pickup trucks lately.
I have not priced new pickup trucks, so enlighten me.
You would be surprised at the money they're getting for some of these real nice pickup. You get like a Ford F350, F450 dually King Ranch edition. I mean, it's a $100,000 truck.
Is it really?
Oh yeah.
For a truck, there's not even anything in the back.
Oh, it's
like open.
Beautiful truck. But I'm like, and I asked the guy, I go, who's buying these things? He goes, I sell them all day long.
Oh, I've seen it. I've seen a bunch.
He goes, I was like, man, they can't afford them. He's like, no, they can't. He goes, but that doesn't stop me from selling them to them. I'm like, you're in the business.
That's true. Well, that's his job. I mean, he's in sales. They're selling you. They are selling you something.
Yeah.
And it's usually, it may be a great truck, and that goes to the impressing people thing. I feel like right now, you said that when you got the truck, you paid whatever, and any money you had, you just paid towards the balance or the debt. And I know you did that for your house as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do that, and that's how they get debt down. But what most people do is whatever's left over at the end of the month, they're like, oh, let's go buy something.
Yeah.
Let's go buy something we don't need that's going to be irrelevant in 6 months.
Yeah. Or there's nothing left over.
Or there's nothing left over.
So.
But the only way we're going to tackle the debt situation is if people make that conscious choice to say, okay, here's I have a balance sheet that I keep and I know what's where and everything. People are going to have to say, if they've got that liabilities column, they've got to look at that as much as they look at expenses and say, okay, I need to pay this down or this down.
We were talking about the education system and how that needs to be revamped, and it's kind of like, okay, that's a big deal. How do you do it? That is a system that needs restructuring.
Yes.
Right? What we're talking about today,
this is easy.
This is something that everybody can do for themselves. This isn't a government-run system that needs to be changed. This is a decision that you just have to make. And it's amazing. Like, it's interesting when you're talking to people just out and about, and you run into somebody, and it'll come up. They'll mention the fact that their house is paid off.
Yeah.
Well, how often does that happen? Not a lot. So when that comes up in conversation, I'm always it's like I'm shocked. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Congratulations. I geek out and get all happy for them on their behalf because it's so rare. It shouldn't be. That should not be rare.
It shouldn't be rare. And you know what's funny is where everybody geeks out is on the other end. It's like, oh my God, I just built this $2.5 million house and come see it and it's gorgeous. And everybody's like, oh my God, that's so great. Did you see their house? But we don't, I want to go in there and go, how much of this did you finance? How much, I think we should celebrate that, but we don't. We're in a society where, the companies are making money off of it. I feel like the country and the companies that run the financial companies make more when we're in debt.
Yeah.
They're not gonna make a dime once we get all this puppies paid off.
Well,
it's human nature, and they're banking on human nature.
Oh yeah, on bad decision making, because that's what we usually do. So you say the system. When you say the word the system,
oh Lord, here we go.
Here we go. Conspiracy Matt comes out.
Here comes Conspiracy Matt.
Because they want us dumb and they want us in debt, because that's how you control people. You control the narrative. Why do you think everything is so politically correct right now, right? I mentioned this before. You can't say anything to upset anybody. You can't hurt anybody's feelings, because they'll go on Twitter and Facebook and badmouth you, and then all of a sudden you're out of a job, right? So we have to watch it, but why do people have to watch what they say so much? Because they can lose their method of making a living.
Yeah.
If somebody gets mad at them, they get canceled, so to speak, right? Yeah. Now, I'm leveraged. Look, me, fire me, whatever. Yeah. I'm gonna be fine.
Right.
Imagine if everybody was in that. How different would conversations be? Everybody could just speak their mind on everything, and everybody would be honest. And I think people would get along a lot better.
I think so too. Well, I tend to be one to speak my mind anyway.
You do, and I like that.
And I'm sure I tick a lot of people off. I'm not politically correct.
Enough. You should piss off some more people.
Do we need to tick? Okay. Yeah. I'm going to try to step this up then and piss off more people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're so proud right now.
I've never been more proud.
But with that, it's because people they sugarcoat it. They don't talk about it, but they don't talk about it. No one knows. I don't know how much. I knew how much debt my clients were in because I was helping them with that. And I would say my closest friends, like my little circle, we talk about that. But you tend to gravitate towards people like you. We were having conversations yesterday with a friend about paying off houses and doing stuff like that. And that's because that's what you talk about. So you pull like people in. But we have to take ownership for it. So if people aren't sitting in there and really realistically look, and I think you should out yourself. I think people need to say, look, here's what I'm working on. And I've done that. My girlfriend Jess and I've done that before. We're like, okay, but we're both divorced. After our divorces, we're like, all right, here's my situation. Here's what we're working on. And we just kind of held each other accountable and knew where everybody was, right?
Can I ask you guys a question?
Of course.
So do you guys think truth is effective?
Truth? Do we think truth is effective? Like with dealing with people?
Yeah, because a lot of people don't want to be honest with themselves.
Oh, I think truth is wonderful. And
I do too.
That's a great question, because you know who was always true in the family? Your grandfather. He was always true. Yep. And some of the kids would be like, well, he's grumpy today. No, he's being honest. And if you're being bad, he'll tell you. Whereas grandma, she's sweet, and everybody likes grandma. She might not tell you because she doesn't want to upset you. But grandpa will tell you about your butt, right?
Yes.
Yep. And that's where I think we're lacking truth. I think people don't want to hear it. People don't want to say it. It's like, oh, we're all just getting along, and we're all just, it's so fake.
Yeah.
We're just bouncing
everything,
through
that's
life.
the keeping up with the Joneses thing. It's like everybody, they're just trying to present and I'm guilty of this. All of us are to an extent, right? But I'll call myself out more than I call anybody else out. I think truth is critical. But I don't know how to get people to do that, because the people tend to be the people telling the truth are the ones that are the end zones, the opposite ends of the spectrum. They're just kind of yelling at everybody.
Well, there's truth, and then there's people who are just loudmouthed,
That's true.
But you got to take the bad with the good.
But how do we get people to be more truthful, I guess, about debt?
I don't know, because I think a lot of parents don't want to talk about it to their kids, because the parents themselves, here's one. This is what needs to happen. The parents are probably ashamed of some of the decisions they made along the ways, right?
Yep.
And they're saying, man, I really don't want to expose that to my kids. My kids, they look up to me.
Yeah.
I'm their parent. We don't always see eye to eye, but I don't want to let my kids know that I made these bad decisions. And I think we need to just shatter that That needs to go.
Yeah.
If you made bad decisions along the way, it's almost like you owe that to your kids to tell, even if you don't tell anybody else, you owe that to your kids so that they don't do it. It blows my mind because all of us, we just want our kids to have it better than we had it.
Right.
And if we don't tell them everything that we did wrong, maybe not everything, there's probably a few things
There are a few things we could leave out.
there's probably a few things that I did along the way that I'm not going to share with Colton. Those were fun though. Those are some great stories.
They're great stories,
Yeah.
but we're leaving those for when
but
he's older.
financially, yeah.
Well, I think you do want to help. You want to help your kids. You want to protect them and all that stuff. But they do need to learn. Like I had my oldest, she's 22. We had a talk when she was home over Christmas about that. And I was up front. I'm like, here's where, because I was so proud of her. She started her own little investment account. She's doing that. And she's in law school. She's going to come out with a lot of debt, but she's already saving. She works from a very meticulous budget. She knows how much she has left over. It goes towards either investments or taking less in loans. So she's very thoughtful about it. And so I told her that I was just so proud of it. She's taken a lot of the Ramsey course. She's really trying to learn it. And I've taught her a lot over the years too, but I opened up about some of the mistakes, that I made and kind of the situation in the past. I'm like, here's where I screwed up, because I know where I screwed up. It was in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
Had I not screwed up in my 20s and 30s, 40s, 50s and beyond would look way different. Not that it's bad now, but like if people can grasp this, but it was because I didn't talk about it. And my dad was in finance. I knew all the concepts.
Yeah.
I knew all of them, but I ignored a lot of them. So it's kind of the talking about it, but people have to get loud about it and start kind of being okay pissing people off. I'm okay pissing people off, as you know, but if we don't know their situation, we don't know what to say. Like we're tiptoeing around it. It's not like you're going to go up to your neighbor and go, so how much debt are you in? Let's work on getting that down.
But why not?
I think that'd
Why
be
not?
a cool thing to do.
People don't talk about that stuff. I know people that are like, they're deathly afraid for people to know how much money they make. And I understand that's a guarded thing. I get it. But I don't know, it's not like you're wearing that on your shirt, but if you're
Right.
telling somebody who you're a friend with or a
Yeah.
family member with, why not tell them that and then work together
Yeah.
to try to make things better? Like you said, wouldn't it be interesting if, when they microchip all of us and we're all walking around, like one of the things they do, like
Conspiracy Matt.
right on our forehead, they put a little screen there and it says how much debt you have. That's like,
Well, that'd be
right on
better
your-
than income, because I think income is irrelevant. No, not irrelevant. It doesn't matter because we don't know what somebody's expenses are.
Well,
But debt would be good.
that would be an interesting thing in the dating world, right? Like, so yeah, because income would be the flashy one. It'd be like,
Right.
your income is surgically implanted into your forehead. So the higher income guys,
Yeah.
I mean, they would just have everybody flocking to them.
But
Yeah.
I have known people that make $1.5 million and spend 1.6.
Sure.
That's so you're right. The flashy, you look at them and you're like, okay, yeah, they make great money. They've got this gorgeous house.
Yeah.
And if you've got a gorgeous house and you're house poor, and another episode like a pandemic hits and it's
Yeah.
gone. It's
Yeah.
gone. But I think we do have to talk about personal responsibility. Because everybody, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Am I wrong in thinking that people know they're getting into debt? I mean, is anybody that dumb where they're like, what? Where did this $200,000 of debt come from?
You just sound like me. That's,
I know. I've been
very
hanging out
insensitive
too
of you
long.
to say that. I love it.
I know it.
That was great.
So insensitive, Matt and Kristen, here
Yes.
with this, but people need to step up and now, like I said, I've made mistakes. This is not me on a high horse saying I'm better than anybody
No.
else. It's just that the mistakes I've made were doozies, because if I'm going to make a mistake, I like to own it. and
Blow
make
that
it-
bridge up.
Let's
Yeah.
just make it big.
Yeah.
But I learned from it. Every mistake, let me rephrase. Almost every mistake I made, I've learned from.
Yeah.
That's what moves us forward. That's what allows us to make better decisions going forward. But if we're never owning our mistakes and never trying to make better decisions, you're in the same boat.
Again, it is a very simple concept, and it's a decision. It's just, are people going to make that decision or
Yeah.
not? I talked to a buddy of mine. I remember a guy that I work with, 2 kids. he's a camera guy, and his wife does something. I forget what she does. She's got a good job. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They live in nothing crazy. Their house is nice, nothing crazy, and they paid it off. I think they're maybe 40.
Okay.
You know, so they're like at 40 years old, a paid off house, and then the pandemic hit, and like I said, he was a camera guy, so he was
Yeah.
out of gigs for a while.
Yeah.
You know, and he was like, he's like, cool, I'll get to spend more time with the kids. And he had that tremendous peace of mind.
Yes.
Because he wasn't. I
Yeah.
asked him, I go, you got gigs coming up? He's like, I think so. He's like not stressed
But
about
that's
anything.
cool. And it's, you know,
wonderful.
people define, you know, financial security and that different. And I was asked that one time when I was an advisor, you know, is how do you define financial security? Or for me, the way I always said it, I never want to have to ask my checkbook or another person for permission to do something. Like, I want to know that, you know, I've got the money, I'm not leveraged, I can do whatever,
Yeah.
that I don't have to say, oh, let me check. You know, let me pull up my account and let me make sure I have enough money in there to go buy these shoes. Well, if you have to pull up your account to see if you have enough money in it to buy the shoes, let me just go on a limb and say you probably don't have enough money to buy the shoes,
Yeah.
right?
I think you're right. You're 100% right. You know, we have a mutual friend named Eric. Eric does financial stuff, and I do a
Yep.
couple investment things with him. And what I love about financial people, because you mentioned it earlier, they'll show you on paper that paying off your house, investment-wise, there's 100 different things you can do
Right.
that on paper
Yes.
are better,
Yes.
interest-wise. But for everybody, for myself and for a couple other people, there's a peace of mind
Yes.
that comes with not having this particular debt, right? So at what price do you put on that? So
Well, no one's talking about, you can't
3%?
you can't quantify that.
No.
So, but it's only a big deal in years like this where it's a big deal. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Most of the time it's like people don't care about peace of mind.
yeah.
I mean, they should, but they don't.
Yeah. I remember, so Colton's always like, my son, as he grew up, he's 17 now, and I'd be like, he's like, Dad, we should do that. I'm like, I'm not spending the money on that. He's like, but we can, right? I go, yeah, we could. I go, but we're not.
Yeah.
Because I'm just not. And I remember one day he's like, why are you saving money? Like, I don't get it. Why are you saving up all this money? I'm like, I don't know. I don't really know, but I'll know when the time hits. And then boom,
And now you know.
COVID-19 hit. I go, hey, dude, remember all those times you asked? I go, yeah, this is why.
Yeah.
And this is why we're going to be okay. If it takes 6 months or a year, we're going to be fine. And that's why. You don't know when these things are going to happen.
Yep.
So if you're all just leveraged to the hilt with all the debt, gosh,
Yep.
it just comes in like a bowling ball.
And this is one of the things that I wish, and I hope everybody listening takes this really to heart, because we know this in theory. Like I said, I did not listen to my own advice early on. And, you know, and I've seen that too. I've seen that in the financial industry. There are a lot of financial advisors and a lot of financial professionals that don't listen to their own advice. And if we could really start sooner taking some responsibility and quit with the stuff. Like I'm totally I don't want to say minimalist, but I mean, I live nice, but I don't buy a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm just not, as much as I like clothes, I really don't have a lot. And 98% of it's black. So it's pretty easy.
But that's a personality thing. And we are bombarded with social media and
Right.
and everything with the latest and the greatest. And,
Yeah.
you don't have that? Oh, you drive that? You're not wearing that watch?
Right.
You know, I read The Millionaire Next Door. And
Yep.
It was interesting. Like, the average millionaire had never paid more than $35 for a watch.
Yep.
And I could relate to that. I've never purchased a watch in my life.
Well, now you don't need it with
I've
the
never
iPhone.
bought one. Yeah. I've spent way too damn much money on this thing. I'll tell you
Yeah,
that.
well, the iPhones,
But-
I mean, they're taking the place of everything.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's just stuff. And if you really think about the stuff that you get excited about and that we buy, and I know I've spent money. I have a couple things that I paid more than I probably should have for, and you have a lot of toys that you probably paid a lot for too, but we use them,
Yes.
and mine weren't financed, so
Yeah.
so that's cool. I mean, I don't think you can finance shoes, can you?
I'm sure you can. I mean,
You probably could.
well, I mean, by putting them on a credit card, you're kind of
That's
financing
true.
them.
That is
aren't
true.
you, in
Yes,
a way.
that is true.
I don't know that you're getting like a monthly payment. Man, if you have to get a monthly payment on shoes,
All right, now
Those gotta be some awesome
you
shoes.
joke about this. There are some online retailers that you can. I don't shop a ton online for clothes because I like to try them on. There are online retailers that, like, when I've gone to check out, you can have a pay. I think it's called Affirms, and you can break it into monthly payments.
oh wow,
So if you're buying a shirt, all right, if y'all are listening and you are on one of these high-end websites
Mm-hmm.
and you are needing to monthly payment something, you can't afford it.
You're right.
I'm gonna go on a limb and just say you can't afford
Love
it.
it.
I'll buy into the car payments, everything like that. I've done car payments, but it's for most little things. Seriously, like how bad do we need it? But we made it too easy because now
Yeah.
you can pop up on social, and I know I'm probably on social a lot more than you are, but you'll get these pop-up ads, and all you have to do is push the button, and they have all my information in
Yeah.
there. And they know where to send it, and they know what card to bill. I just
Isn't
have
it
to
nice that they have made it so easy
get in debt.
and so convenient for you to just put yourself in more debt?
They have.
Great.
Well, even yesterday, my brother said this yesterday. He said he goes, he ordered something on Amazon. He goes, it was one swipe.
Yeah.
All I do is hit buy now, and it shows up. He said it's showing up at my house tomorrow. So we've made it convenient. How can we make it convenient to get out of debt? Like there are some cool things. I had a guy on here.
That's a good question.
I had a guy on, and I'm going to plug this because I think it's worth it. Christian, he was on here a couple years ago as a guest, and he had just launched this app. It's called Coins. It's Qoins. And what it does is, you know how some of the banks and companies will round up and they'll put it in your savings? His rounds up and you can attach it to a debt.
Oh.
And he just got some venture capital money. I read it in the Atlanta Business Journal. Young kid. But what happened is when he told his story, he took on some debt and for college and everything, and he wanted to get out of it. And so he and his partner built this app that allows you to do that. So but it's not as easy. I mean, it's super easy to use. I've checked it out and everything when he first launched it. It's super easy to use, but it's not as easy as one swipe to sign up to buy something. So if we could normalize paying it off, that'd be kind of cool.
That's a mental thing. You almost have to convince people that it doesn't matter what others think about you. And I don't know.
That's a big thing to convince.
Yeah, I don't know that we could ever do that.
2 minutes.
It is an interesting concept because and maybe it's in my old age, I think I've adopted this. I don't care what other people think. I care what my little inner circle, and there's probably 5 or 10 people in my little inner circle that know me and know about me. I care what they think.
Yeah.
But they also would call me out on stuff if I wasn't being me. I don't care what anybody else thinks.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's a hard place to get to. And I came to that part just by making all the mistakes and realizing that, holy crap, I've been doing, and we talked about this a lot in my book, I spent so long doing things for everybody else as opposed to me. That finally it's like, all right, I want to feel good. I want to take care of me.
Yeah.
Stay in my own little bubble. Take care of me.
I can relate. I understand. I think that's a good point. And it is, there comes a time in your life where I think when you feel good about where you're at. And when you're not totally comfortable with where you're at, then you worry more about what people think. When you get to that point, you're like, you know what? I'm good here.
Yep.
Yeah, screw everybody.
Yep.
Not
No,
that
it's
that's
true.
the best attitude to have either. You can
No,
take
but
that
that's
too
okay.
far, but
You can, but you're not being, here's the thing. I don't care what other people think, but I'm not being mean about it.
Sure.
Like that was why we did the subtitle in the book. So you're not for everyone, but you can be for everyone. I can still cheerlead and want people to help, which is why, we talk about topics like this. If I piss you off, I'm totally cool with that. But if it pisses you off and makes you realize, you know what, I probably should write down all the debts I have and the liabilities and figure out how I'm going to plan attack. Cool. I will piss you off all day long if it helps somebody make some better choices.
Yep, I agree. And I think that's easier than, it's probably, I don't know. People deal with addictions and people quit this and quit that. This one, there's no withdrawal symptoms. You're not going to get the DTs
you don't get a
or
headache.
anything. No, all the side benefits are good of this, of paying off the debt.
That's an interesting thought because you're right. Like most of it's the pleasure pain type of thing. There's really not pain other than, the only pain is you can't spend as much, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I think that's the challenge, everybody, is we've got to figure out, I want everybody listening to write, if you are in a situation where you are not in any debt and you've made good fiscal choices and, you're like where you are and you can kind of, then help other people. Help explain, talk about that. So for those of you guys listening who financially are strong and making good decisions, let people know. I think we need to normalize that that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're not bragging about it. You're saying, hey, look, this worked out for me, and clearly I'm not an expert in it. So if it worked out for me, it can work out for you because
Right.
it just is.
But for the other people who aren't in that situation, my challenge is make a plan. I mean, write it down. And here's what's interesting is there are financial professionals out there that help with stuff like this. They typically money coaches or things like that. These are not the advisors that I work with a lot that are working on investments and things. It's a whole nother subset of the financial realm. There are people and companies out there that will help you figure out how to get out of debt, but it is going to take sacrifice. It's every successful person I know had some sacrifice.
Yeah.
They sacrifice something. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's, I don't know, relationships, whatever it is. All of us sacrifice something. But it's time to sacrifice.
I agree.
Got to get it moving. All right. So that's the challenge, folks listening. Matt, thank you for your wisdom.
Well, thanks for calling it that.
Well,
I'll take it.
It's a good thing because I think we need to. What I love is the fact that you're not in the financial world professionally. But so this is real world experience. Like if you can do this without being like a finance major or anything, you don't have to be a finance major.
Yeah.
You just got to make an effort. So that's the big thing. All right. So make the list of the debts that you're in. If you are successful and already done all this stuff and are rocking it, help some other people too. But write down what you're going to do, get out there and let's make a difference. Cause I'm telling you what, if it pisses you off, let it piss you off, but we got to get moving in the right direction so we can all have that peace of mind that Mr. Steele here has with when the next bad things happen. So we will see you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next Tuesday.